All right. 12 online. We got 4 in class. Everyone check into archive. This class shouldn't require a location, which is weird, Abby, because it's just online. Does that happen to you every time, Abby? All right, 10 o'clock. Let's get started. Hey, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and take roll this morning. I am just going through archive right now. If I call your name as absent, and you are here, please just speak out. Chad Ackley, I have as absent. Raphael, I see you're present. Colby Baum, absent. Gunnar Bostrom, I see you see as present. Thank you. Jesse Cameron, you are shown as absent. James Critchlow is here. Isaac Dobbins, absent. Just go ahead and unmic and unmute or. Okay. Ian Erickson, marked as present. David Finley, absent. Jason Fonsbeck, present. Christian Hansen, present. Jackson Knight, present. Jaden Lippert, present. Leo, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, present. Abby Lyons, I'm going to mark you as present since you already let me know about that. We'll go Alonso Marquez Rodriguez, absent. Morgan Martin, present. Ian McKell, present. Rory McNeil, present. Jordan Mortensen, present. Cody Osler, present. Paul Pena, absent. William Pendleton, present. Gordon Reed, absent. Brecken Shumway, absent. Danes Wallace, absent.
Brecken Shumway's here.
Brecken's here. Okie doke, gotcha. Danes Wallace. Okay. Zach Walters, absent. Wesley White, present. Nicholas Whites, absent. Jaden Wilcox and Seth Young, present. All right. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Yeah, I'll save that. %71% here. I guess that's all right. Okay. Second here. Okay, good. All right. Anybody have any housekeeping items, questions? Have we all figured out how to submit Zybooks properly and get the grades to go through and all that stuff? I hope. You can start working on Chapter 4 CSS. And you have 5 labs. They're all pretty easy, folks. So in these modules. So how's I'd just like some feedback. I say I've got a question here. One sec. Okay. All right. Any feedback from you guys? How's the pacing going? All right. Too slow? Anyone think it's too slow? No one's going to say that.
Well, I mean,
yeah, Willie?
I was gonna say I kind of do a little bit, but it's nice because I'm also taking calculus, and that one's going way too fast.
Okay, so this will speed up for you guys. I did purposely sort of do this for September. The CSS and HTML chapters, the labs are fairly easy, but as we move forward into chapter 5, 6, and 7, those labs get more difficult, and so just be prepared to spend a little more time on those. I am considering, actually, just on my way to work today, throwing in a little project for you guys to practice your HTML. We'll see how we go on that, because you are doing quite a bit. I mean, are you finding the labs to be useful in helping you sort of master what you're learning? Yes, no? And anyone sort of finding the labs useless? No. Hopefully they're useful. Again, I really like the idea of doing 4 or 5 small labs. We used to just do 1 or 2 labs, and I would do projects. And I like the idea of just sort of giving you guys 4 or 5 labs. You guys get used to get into that groove. And I believe you're learning. So we are going to do some projects, but it's going to be a little later in the semester. So in the meantime, just keep cranking away on Zybooks, and you feel free to go ahead. I think I opened up module 4. I might have to open up some things for some of you who are cruising. Right. Christian says labs are useful. Doing something versus rather than just being lectured about something is helpful. I have learned over the years that I have slides, and I'll share all these slides with you. I have a lot of slides on HTML and CSS. You may want to use them for review and that. But I found that actually just going through code, working on code, and doing real code examples is much better. We'll do some slides, but generally when I throw slides up, half the class falls asleep, and so I try to avoid that. I do want you all to have Visual Studio Code fired up, ready to go. I want you to have the HTML practice with HTML lab ready to go. Do you all have it ready to go? Let's say that in the announcement. If you haven't, go ahead and download that HTML5 practice lab. Okay. And as I go through code, I encourage you guys to just follow what I'm doing, type in, just try to practice what I'm doing. Okay. All right, let's go to plan for today. Okay. So last time we started going over forms a little bit, right? I'm pretty sure that was the case. We're going to talk about forms again today. We did talk about forms? Okay.
Yeah, and it was talked about heavily in this chapter.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so do you guys want to go over forms more? You feeling pretty comfortable with forms?
Yeah, I'd like to go over forms more.
Okay. I think they're important. I mean, they're going to be something that I'm going to require you to master, and you'll be tested on, and you'll be doing quite a few forms later in the semester. We're going to be doing custom form validation and other things like that with JavaScript and things like that. So we'll review forms, HTML5 containers. Maybe I'll go ahead and review those first. Let's go ahead and share my screen. Okay, you can see them up here, all right? Okay. I'm going to pop over to W3 Schools real quick. Hopefully you're getting used to kind of popping back and forth. Zybooks has got some good content. W3 Schools, I think between the two of them, we fill in the blanks. So HTML5, HTML semantics, HTML5 semantics. Okay. Can someone pipe up and tell me what a semantic element, what its purpose is? Either in class or online. Actually. All right. So I'm gonna use this nifty feature in the lucky student is Jordan Mortensen, who I think is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just supposed to convey some sort of meaning as far as my understanding goes.
An HTML5 semantic tag, what Jordan says is supposed to convey some meaning. Okay. Yes, it is supposed to convey some meaning. So let's look at these tags. This is a little more exhaustive list than what you have in Zybooks. But here's an example. Here's a really basic example of just laying out a web page using semantic tags. I might use header tag to start off with, right, for my header. I might have a nav, okay, for a menu, navigation menu. I might have just a section. Okay, section is kind of just generic, more generic.
Hey Google,
Article.
set the bed lights to ultramarine.
Okay. Article, again, if you're posting like blog posts or things like that, or articles, things that are sort of self-contained, you can use an article tag. Aside, that's meant for the area of your page that's kind of shoved over to the right in this case. Okay, and then I've got a footer. I'm gonna go through, so other ones we have here: article, aside, details. So maybe I've got an article, and then in the article I have a details or something like that, which just sort of just gives a high-level overview or something like that. Or if you're, again, if it's sort of a drill down, a high-level overview that you might throw in there. Figure and fig caption. So if you're actually displaying a figure and you want to have a tagline and that sort of thing, I'm going to take my figure. It's like in a figure 1-1, figure 1-2. Okay, figure and a caption for that figure. We might see an example of that. Footer, header, main. Main is what I would generally say is put all your content inside the body, inside a main tag. Make that kind of your root and not the body. We don't want to make the body the root of our HTML. We usually want to have a div or something like that. All these tags, every single one of them are block elements. They're just like a div, okay? A generic block element. Each of these, again, so a block element does what? What are the main characteristics of a block element?
It takes up the full width of the parent container.
Correct. Right. So in this case, the header tag here takes up the full width of the page. Okay. They always take up the full width of the page. In the chapter, again, you went through some exercises where they had you change spans to tags and see what the difference was. Okay. So what's the major difference between a span and a div? Again, feel free to speak up if you feel, or throw something in.
Doesn't span just go up where the sentence is the end?
So span is called inline, right? And so it's meant to really just wrap around text or wrap around other elements, and you can put style on them, like an I tag, an italic, or okay. That's a good default. Well, so there's a generic inline element called span, a generic block element called div. Okay, almost all these are all div, basically divs in sheep's clothing. All right, they're just another name. So we call them semantic tags because they're just used to sort of let someone know who's looking at your code. Yeah, this is my site. This is my nav. Right now, if I'm for example, I'm Google and I'm scraping your page, I'm going to go straight to the nav tag go look at your links, right? Or I might just go to your page and grab all your links and follow them, right? But if I know it's a nav, then I have some sort of semantic guidance, okay? When you write code, I like you guys to write clean code, right? When you turn it in or whatever, I want it to be nicely formatted, and I also want it to be nicely organized. And this is a good way to organize your code. All right, let's go, for example, I'm going to go into band web page was an example that you had before. It might have been chapter 2, I believe. Let's just run this real quick. Sorry, I can't drink to that. Okay, again, basic band web page. It's got kind of a, I'd call this maybe the header, right? I have a nav here, and then I've got these different sections where I've got members, I've got concerts, I got a contact. So let's go ahead and let's go into that. Okay? And I'm going to reformat this using HTML5 semantic tags. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna take this header tag and I'm going to close my H1 and my image in a header. Then I'm going to say, I've got a whole bunch of content now. It's going to be my nav. I'm going to go ahead. I'll go to my nav now. So we'll do a nav tag. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is I made an extra. I did an extra right bracket. Oh, some of you had issues, by the way, with checking in labs and just like missing tag names and doing really obvious stuff. Okay, if you're one of those, that's okay this time. But what I want to show you something real quick. I'm going to select all my text. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go to the HTML validator. W3C markup validation service, validator.w3.org. Okay. And I can validate, what this does is it validates your HTML, make sure that it's actually well-formed. Okay. And that's a good thing when you're submitting your lab. So I recommend you do this before submitting any lab for the first time, or if you have issues that, sometimes if you get something wrong, someone had the HTML tag spelled HTM, and all the unit tests failed. Now, otherwise the code actually was good, was decent, right? But sometimes you get this case where if the unit tests are failing, you're like, well, I did it. Okay, make sure that you have good, so I can validate by file upload, which is a good way to do it, or I can just do direct input. In this case, I selected it all, I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to say check. Okay, and let's see what I got here. Error, it says an image element must have an alt attribute. Okay. So I didn't put an alt attribute on my image. All right. Now that's not going to cause the page to just completely fail. Okay. But that's, it's required by the standards body because you need to have that alt thing there for who? Who needs the alt tag? Who really needs it?
Older browsers.
Older browsers, but people who are blind, people, okay, things like that. Okay, so the browser might be able to read that to them. Okay, so that's why. So if I had done something really bad, let's go into my code real quick. Band web page, and let's do that. Let's make that little mistake that someone else made. Maybe let's do this as well. Let's create a hanging tag situation where I've got this section and maybe I put 2 closed section tags. Okay. And let's see, should Visual Studio say something about that? Let's see, it doesn't really care so much at the moment. All right, let's go ahead and Control C, go over to W3C Validator. Let's go here, like that, and check. So now I'm getting a warning. Consider adding a lang attribute to HTML start tag. Well, that's because my HTML tag is incorrect. Let's see, error element head is missing a required instance of a child element title. Interesting. So it now determined that the head sort of is missing an element, which is kind of weird. Element HTML not allowed as a child element of body. Start tag body scene, but an element of the same type was already open. Okay. Yeah. So we had some. Let's fix the HTML part of that, because that actually seemed to cause a lot of problems. Okay. I really didn't like that. You know, and this particular example didn't have a head. I like to go ahead and put that in. It's not always required to actually have the head there, but I generally will say let's always have the head. Let's see, what's made? It's Alt Shift F to format it. Thank you. Very good. Okay. Let's see what's wrong with my code now. We'll see. Stray end tag section, right? Okay. Yeah. I added the extra stray end tag. It doesn't really match up. Doesn't have anybody to match up with. So he gave me that error. So anyway, just wanted to make sure you guys knew about that. Let's go ahead and fix that problem. Okay. All right. So I got a header. Oh, sorry, the header. Okay. And don't mess up head and header. Okay. Head always is outside of the body. Okay. Has the title. And then let's go body. Let's go. I've got header. I'm going to also put a main tag in here. So I'm going to, not necessarily the header, I'm going to go ahead and close my main, all the rest of my content, except for the footer as well. I'm going to put the header and the footer on their own, and then I'm going to have the main tag contain all of my content. Dash main. Let's do that. Okay. And let's go up here. All right, what else could I do to make this clear? I've got header, I've got main, I've got my nav. So I'm going to put my nav in there. Okay, put my nav code in there, my p tags there. Okay. F, okay. And then I've got, back here, let's go to tags, main mark, section, summary. Oh yeah, summary is a good one too. Time, okay. And then list of band members. I've got list of band members, then I've got table of upcoming concerts, section. All right, sure. H2 concerts table. We went over tables, I think, before too. Let's see, we got, then I've got section contact. Okay, now the contact section, let's run this now. Let's go look at the running in here. Let's see, so it doesn't change the layout, right? Okay. But I might throw the contact information into what I call, maybe, let's add a footer. We don't really have a footer here, but let's just say copyright 2020 Jensen Corporation. Okay. There's my footer. Okay. So again, sort of basic reformat here. Might I use anything inside here? Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else I would do. Oh, you know what? One thing we could do, let's go back here. I'm not going to reformat the table. The table is just kind of nice the way it is, I guess. But if you're doing a list of things like this, you could actually use articles. Okay, and that's not really articles. So don't get too caught up on, let's go back here, the actual semantics. There's no like very specific way you have to use each particular tag. There's suggested ways. Let's go through and show an example. Let's see, article. Right, so articles have independent content. So I have an article, H2 Google Chrome, okay. Here I've got just sort of independent little pieces of information about each browser. Let's see what else. Any questions on semantic elements for now? Let's see here. Which I want to cover. Oh, yeah. Let me just show you real here. So, for example, I've got an article. There's no sort of thing that says the header has to be an article or article has to be, you know, basically, I've got an article and I'm going to say there's a header to my article, which is the title. I could even put a footer. Okay. I could do a p tag here, or I could do, you know, details or something like that if I want to. I can sort of create my own pattern, if you will. Okay, let's see here. Anything else? We'll talk more about these things later. All right. All right, so we want to talk about launch containers. I want to show you real quick before we go back into forms. Let's go back to this banned web page. So in this chapter, you learned about script tags and style tags, correct? I hope so. I think it was one of the last sections that you learned. All right. Let's just go over that real quick.
It touched on briefly.
Yeah, briefly. Again, we're kind of starting off slow this semester. We're working on HTML. We're not even getting into CSS until next week. And we got 2 weeks CSS. So for me, it is kind of slow. I generally like to push the class a lot faster, but I'm purposely going a little slower this semester. And so, but you need to learn a little bit about, so here's the structure of a website, right? Right now I have an index HTML. Okay. Why is it called index? Someone explain to me? Is index HTML important? Is it important that it's called index? Anyone know?
Yeah, it has to be called index or else it won't let you submit it.
Called index? No, I don't know about that. You can submit a page that's not called index. Let me just explain to you real quick that the, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a second. Or can you guys switch over to my board view so I can round the board a little bit? Right, you guys online, you can switch back and forth between my sharing and my, hope you all figured that out.
Yeah.
And what we can do here is we can move this over here. So you can see that. Well, some people are having issues with the quality of the writing coming through. It could be my writing. All right, and I did give you guys a little bit of an overview of how like a server works, right? An Apache server and things like that. I talked about it a little bit. Okay. But when we're talking about forms, you kind of, I'm going to redraw this, something that makes sense. I have my index.html page. It's got some text. It's got some image, an image there. Maybe it has a, maybe there's a JavaScript file that's included. Okay. So with my script tag. Okay. And this page has a domain name. I like this, abc.com. Can people see this? Can you see it all right online? Just someone to speak up. Can you see my board okay?
Yeah, I can see it all right.
Great. Okay. All right, and so I've got my web page. This is sitting in my browser, right? I type in http://abc.com, and I want to load up index.html for abc.com. Now we talked about how obviously the browser goes and gets an IP address. Okay. And then it makes a GET request, okay, to that IP address, okay, for abc.com. So it makes a GET request. So that goes to, so it goes to abc.com, which is this IP address, which is a server. Okay. Okay, so your browser is your client, and the server, it does kind of what you expect him to do. Okay. He serves up content to you, to your browser. Okay. And this server is located at 100.50.100.25 on the internet. Again, usually there's an Apache server software running on the server. There's other. What other web browsers? What other web servers are there? Spit them out that you know of. Do you know of any other web servers? What? Ubuntu? Yeah. That's actually a operating system. It's not a web server. So web server software, Apache runs on Ubuntu. I run it on Ubuntu on my server.
Does NASA have a server?
What?
NASA?
NASA?
Yeah.
I don't know that, but it may be.
No, I read somewhere.
If you're Microsoft, it's Internet Information Services, IIS. Okay. There are other ones. They're popular. Nginx is one. Nginx.
Light TPD.
Light. Anyway, lots of different web servers. Okay. Each of these servers does the same thing. I mean, they're going to serve up content. Okay. Some do it faster than others. Some are optimized for Windows, for example, Windows security and things like that. Others, again, Apache is the most popular on the internet. It's easily configurable, and essentially what it does is it says, oh, okay, it's got a little configuration. It says abc.com. And then it says what directory that's in. And that might be on the server itself. abc. Okay. In Web 2, you get to learn about all the Apache configuration and things like that. But now you just need to know that it might have another site, ken.com. Okay, it might be in /dub ken. Okay. I should write bigger, huh? Within abc.com directory, this is the file folder structure. There's going to be a file called index.html. Same thing in the ken, index.html. Okay. Now, although let's see, it may be something like this: index.php. Okay. Anyone know what PHP is? Anyone heard of PHP?
I can't remember.
What's that?
I can't remember.
PHP is a language that I'm going to teach you in Web 2 briefly, but it's a server-side language that would allow me, for example, when I call abc.com, index HTML, or ken.com, okay, index PHP. This is a dynamic web page, so it actually can access a database, whereas this index HTML is it's just a static web page like you guys are creating. Okay? Nothing dynamic going on in the back end. I'm not going to a database and grabbing information and rendering a table and then spitting it out. Okay, but that can't. A lot of websites on the internet, right? If they want to show you information that's up to date, right, or dynamic. They might grab data from a database. Okay? They might construct a web page, and then that they'll return that as the response. Okay? So that's called a dynamic web page. Okay? This one was called static. These are good test questions, or take notes and remember that. Okay. Dynamic web page might actually access a database, create the page dynamically on the server side. Okay? And then send that page back up. And when it gets back up to the browser, it's just HTML, right? The browser doesn't know that it's a dynamic page, doesn't care, right? It just displays HTML. If I just say abc.com, Apache will go down in there and he'll look for anything with the word index. That's why we use index HTML or index PHP or index, because that's the default. So otherwise I would have to say, let's say I called this page, band, on my band web page, band.html. Okay. I would have to, right here, say /band.html. I have to specifically say what page I want. Okay. If I don't specifically say that, then it's gonna automatically go and find index HTML on the server. Again, just return that static web page. And just know that when you load a web page, there's a lot of requests going on. Okay? It's going to load the page, and then it's going to come down, start rendering. It's going to go, oh, I got an image. It's going to go back to the server and make another call here called, whatever, logo.jpg. It needs logo.jpg. Apache's going to go, okay, go down into abc.com, grab logo.jpg, return that image as the response, and then the browser is going to render that image. Okay? So some web pages, you ever been to a web page that takes a long time to load? That's because index.html loads, and then they're out there loading script, loading styles, loading images, right? And they haven't optimized their images. For example, it might be big images, right? Because some people don't know that you really should compress and optimize your images for the web. Images on the web only need to be 72 dots per inch, and you pretty much only need about, I don't know, maybe 1,000 pixels wide. You can take all your images, because right now you take a 20 megapixel image, okay? That JPEG is not going to be 20 meg. It's going to be like 8 meg. You don't want to be downloading 8 meg images. You want to convert that image. You want to downsize it to a good web size, and then serve it up to the client. All right. Any questions? All right. Time do we have? All right. So I was going to go back here, and I'm going to show you all the sort of different ways that you can include styles and script. So we're looking ahead a little bit, but in HTML, this is where you actually specify where you're getting your style. So in my head element here, I can put a style tag right here, just right in line. Okay? It's called an inline style. And I might do something like this, since I just created my header, and CSS has curly brackets. So CSS is the second called language or markup language that you're going to use. All right. And in there, in the CSS rule, I'm going to have basic styles like color. I always do, but color red. Okay. That says to make the text color red. Okay. Let's make the background color. And the nice thing about Visual Studio is it gives you autocomplete. I can choose a nice. I've got red. I'm going to choose a bisque color here. Okay. Save that. I'm going to go. Oh, over here. Sorry. Okay. I now have a bisque background, and I've got red text in my header. Okay, so that actually works. Let's go inspect this page. I'm going to put the element inspector right here in the top left corner. I'm going to select reach out, and you see my H1 tag. You can look over here in the styles, and you can see I've got default. So the default user agent style sheet. Remember this one? This is the default browser style sheet. It doesn't actually, you don't actually include it. It's by default. By default, it's block element. Font size is 2EM. Talk about font sizes later. But again, it's got basic font weight bold. Then inherited from header. Okay. All right, so I've got header color red, background color bisque. I can take that, and I can see here I can turn this on and off. Again, just demonstrating some of the nice capabilities of the of the debugger. All right, let's see here. Let's go back. So we're going to talk a little bit about developer standards, and they talked about those in the end of the chapter. Just some of the things that you need. I'd always put a head tag. Okay. Always, again, the things that you always want to have. You want to have your doc type HTML. That says that this is an HTML5 doc. You want to specify your language. Okay. By default, it's probably going to be English. Okay. But we specify it. Character set UTF-8 is a good character set to use. You can use other character sets. We're not going to go deep dive into character sets. Title. Okay, style. Now your inline style. Is this the ideal place to put your styles? What do you think? Nope. Why?
You should put them in a separate file.
I should put them in a separate file.
It makes it easier for readability. It's just nicer.
Yeah. So if you want to have, if you're doing like an example like this, right? It's a small page, and I've just got a few styles. Throwing them in here, the style tag is, it's fine. Okay. Because I can give you one page, and it's an example of my JavaScript and my, CSS. So, good from that standpoint. But from a developer standpoint, probably not. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to show you what I do. I'll create a new folder called CSS. Okay? Go into that folder, and I would create a new file called main.css. Okay? Go back to my index.html. Take this style. Take this tag. You don't want the HTML tag in the CSS file. You just want that. Okay. So I've now put it in the CSS file. How do I get that? All right, so I'm going to go to my index.html. I'm going to get rid of my style tag here. And anyone know what tag I use? Well, equal sheet equal. And I'm going to use a relative path CSS because I'm in the root, right? Main.css. When we talked about that, I could put slash there, which is fine. What that says is go back to the root of the web page and run it. This is the kind of thing that would get you, if you decide that you want to open your web page not in live server or just like off the file system, relative paths, for example, aren't going to work and things like that. So that's why that's another reason why we want to use a web server context. Okay. Well, let's see, I've got here. Oh, I need to close that out. All right, so let's see whether my styles still come through. Okay, well, yeah, they do. All right, but now it's saying, so again, just looking at this side, I got header and it's from main CSS. Okay, I can click on that, I can bring up main CSS. And have a look. All right, that's in the sources tab. All right, let's go back. So that's how you should obviously put your CSS in a subfolder. We usually put our images in a subfolder, which is correct. All right. In this case, I'm using an external image over on S3, which is fine. Now, what about script? Actually, let's go. Actually, I want to show you a couple more things. Let's go inline here. Let's go to this H2 tag. And I'm going to add an attribute here. I'm going to call it style. So here, I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this to blue. B. Okay. So this is what's called an inline style. Okay. When the styles are up here, I guess you could call them inline or in page, but this is a true inline style. I'm going into my HTML. I'm going to stuff this attribute here, style. I'm going to give it a style, and I can get multiple styles. I can say color blue. I could say font style italic. So I can give it multiple styles right here, just as if I were in my main CSS file. I can go ahead and inline them here. This is the list of band members. Let's go see what my result is. Okay, band members is now blue and italic. Again, this can be done for the same reasons that was mentioned earlier. It's not the recommended way to do things. But for example, if this was just this one element had one specific style, and I wanted to just sort of stuff it in there, and the style's not reused by anyone else. Okay, I might be lazy, sort of just throw it in there, leave it in there. But generally, we wouldn't do that, right? What would we do? Let's say I want this one H2 tag to have these styles. What would I do?
You could give it an ID and style that ID in the style sheet.
Okay, well, hang on a second. What would you do? You put an ID on the H2 and do an ID tag in the style sheet. Good. What were you saying, Raphael?
I was just trying to go back a little bit. What makes it an inline style that you were talking about? What is it that makes it an inline?
Well, there are, going back to which inline?
You were just mentioning that the H2 style,
Oh.
the way you said it.
Oh, okay. When I said inline, okay. Yeah. Yeah, now you might confuse that between block and inline.
Right.
Okay. No, that was not okay. So an inline tag is a span or italic or bold. It's a particular kind of tag. When I say inline script, that's in the HTML as an attribute on the page, right? So I'm adding this inline. It's not an inline style like a blocker inline. It's a inline. I'll call it in element. Let's put it that way. Okay. I'm adding the style specifically to this element. But okay, so preferred. I'm going to do two things. One is I can give an ID to this H2 members H2. Okay. Then I can take this style here. Actually, I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna leave this here for now, just to demonstrate something to you real quick. Let me go into my thing here. I'm gonna say pound members H2. Two rules here. I'm gonna make the color red. I'm gonna save that. Still blue. Why is it still blue?
Because that style's still there.
Okay, let's go ahead and look at this tag here. ID membership to style equal. So look at the styles. The element style. So the element style, it overrides the style that I put in the style sheet. So the main CSS has members sh2, which is the ID of this. So it's styling this h2. But if I put an inline style in the actual tag itself, that takes precedence. Okay? That's why we're calling this cascading style sheets. Okay. I'm gonna try to. All right. And cascading meaning if I have a rule that's specified in a file and then I have the same rule below, who wins? Last one to the party wins. Okay. So if I have a CSS file included, that applies to the whole page. If I then have an inline style, okay, in the element, that overrides that. But also, I don't have two CSS files here, but I'm going to show you here. I added my style sheet. Let's add another one. I'm going to call it main 2. I'm going to take this, I'm going to duplicate it. Copy, paste, rename, main2.css. In main2, let's see, I don't want, well, in main2, I'm going to say, let's make this color, okay. Okay. All right, before I go back to the web page, given the current state of play, what color is the H2 tag going to be? What? I think it's purple. Any other votes? Purple, red, or blue? Who says blue? Why? You don't know why? You just guess? Okay.
Just gonna guess that has something to do with.
Well, let's look at the code. What did I just explain to everybody? Who wins? What rule wins?
Last one to the party wins.
Last one to the party. Last one to the party is the inline style. I haven't removed it yet. Okay? So it's still going to win regardless of what other CSS I throw out there. Okay? Except
the last one of the party, because you just added the members purple as the last one.
Oh, let me explain that. Okay, so when an HTML page is rendered, it gets rendered top down. Okay, so what's going to happen is, looking at this right here, it's going to load. Oh, I can turn off this light.
Oh, I see what you said.
Oh, I can't really see my face. But you can see the code all right. Right, so main CSS gets loaded and compiled by the browser, and then main 2 CSS gets loaded and overrides anything there, and then it goes to the body and starts rendering the content. It gets to the H2. By default, it applies whatever the style in main 2 CSS was, and then it gets to the attribute and says, oh, he's overriding this attribute locally, so that's the actual end style. Okay, so it's top down. Everything happens top down on a web browser as it goes through. Okay.
So since it goes to the main before it actually hits the HTML.
Yeah, so the browser is going to go and grab these. When it hits this, it's going to send requests off to the server to get those files, okay? But anyway, in the end, it's going to render main CSS, main2 CSS, and then it's going to render the inline tag. Okay? All right, what if I then, okay, this is kind of fun just because I think you need to understand, people don't understand the cascading nature of CSS. I think this is good. I'm going to go ahead and remove this now. Okay. Now, main CSS, we've got red, main2 CSS, we've got purple. What's it going to be? This will be easy now. What's it going to be? You right here. What color is it going to be? I'm asking you in front of me. What's your name? No, it's going to be right here. What color is it going to be? Purple. You are correct. Oh, look, purple. Okay, again, let's go back here. Now I have, look, main CSS. And I've got a little strike through there saying that these were overridden by main2 CSS. Okay. All right. This exercise can get even more fun. Let's go back to index.html. ID isn't. I'm not a big fan of putting an ID in there. Right. I'm making an H2 a really important, unique thing on the page. What would I generally want to do there instead of using an ID? What's another way I can target an element?
With classes.
Thank you. Okay, this is the preferred method right here. Class equal red header. Okay. Give it a name. Okay. I'm going to go into main.css. I'm going to change that. I don't want that. And so what I'm going to do dot red header. Okay. That's so a class is always specified with a dot. So I've created a new class called red header. Okay, let's go. Okay, header's red. Okay. Why? Because I've got dot red header class applied. Okie doke. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go one step further just because it's fun. All right, section red header. Okay, so there's lots of ways that I can actually specify this H2. Okay. So I can actually specify the parent tag. So I want to target any H2 class that's part of a section. Okay. So what I do for that one on main CSS is I just say section space red header. Okay. What that says is in CSS, any section tag that has, we'll be more specific, an H2. Let's see, let's make it more specific. Okay. If I have a section tag that has a child H2 that has a class red header, I want to apply the red header. Okay. So let's save that. Okay. And again, that is well applied. All right. Now I'm going to do something here, which let's just do. I'm just going to be fun. I'm going to call this red header. I'm going to call it blue. That's all right. Okay. Essentially, I'm targeting the same one here. Okay. It's still red. How come that didn't override? Look, H2.red header is blue. Section greater than H2 red header is red. Why is it blue? Answer, anyone? I use the specific word. What's that?
The parent?
Is it because it's inside of the section tag, so the path, the red, it matches that description, the H2 inside of your section?
Okay, so both of these do match, okay? I mean, it is trying to style it, but it gets overridden by this one, and the reason is this one is more specific, okay? And so there's a thing called specificity, which when we get into CSS and advanced CSS, we'll maybe spend a little more time on, but I'll just, actually, there's a CSS specificity calculator. Where's the calculator? The link to this is in our HTML resources. Okay. What this does is it allows you to sort of specify some tag. Oh, we'll do our little thing here. We're going to do section greater than h2 dot, whatever style, red head. Okay. And I'm going to do my same thing. I'm going to say h2 dot red head. Okay. Oh, and so the way this works, sort by specificity. This is more specific. So anytime that you add more detail, right? If I give it a parent, and then this is the first child, okay, that's being more specific. That rule is always going to override this one, even though it's after it in the file. All right. So let's go back here, and I'll just show. We'll say, let's see. Go back to my code. Index HTML, and here's my H2. Let's give it ID. ID equal red head. Okay. It's about as specific as you can get, right? Because it says there's only one of these on the page, because every ID has to be unique. Let's go back to our specificity calculator. Okay. And I'm going to add another one. Okay. And I'm going to say pound redhead. Okay. Sort by specificity, boom. It jumps to the top. Okay. And what it's calculating here, look, it's saying ID, so there's red, blue, and green. Okay. If there's any IDs, then it's number one. It's top, right? Okay. The next thing it looks at is classes, attributes, and pseudo classes. So if it's a class or it's an inline attribute like we did, or a pseudo class, and then third is elements and or pseudo elements. Okay. And that's just this right here. If I say duplicate and I go H2, sort by specificity. Okay. So now I've got redhead, which has one ID, and so it wins. Okay. And so if I have one or more classes, then it's going to win, right? So I've got one class, okay? And then I have two elements, section and H2. So between these two, my score is higher than these two. This has one class and one element. It doesn't have two. So this guy wins, okay? And then this guy just has an element, one. Element tags, like H2, section, P, those are the lowest in the hierarchy. Any questions on this? Is this clear? Hopefully, at least we get an idea of cascading and specificity a little bit as you go into CSS. And again, I'm sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but let's go back here. Any questions on this at all? Please feel free to open your mic. Is it understood? Okay. So in this case, ID redhead. Right, I can go into my main 2 CSS. Right. Oh, let me redhead. and you'll see that pound redhead, because it's a higher specificity, wins over that guy. Okay, let's go back. Got 10 minutes. Let's quickly do script. I don't have a script file yet, so I'm just going to call it js main.js. And just know that when you include a script tag, so a link for a style sheet is a self-closing tag, it's like an image, but when a script tag always has to have a full closing element. All right, so I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to my band web page, I'm going to create a folder called JS for JavaScript. I'm going to add a file to that called main.js. And let's see here, I'm going to go back to I've got my include, main.js, all right, and I'm going to put a function in here. Function is going to be alert me, okay, with what? Some sort of message, and I'm going to say alert MSG. So again, really basic JavaScript. JavaScript function gets called, pass in a message. Maybe not display it. Let's console log it. Okay. So I'll show you how to console.log and I'll tell you what that is. All right, so I'm going to alert me. Okay. I'm going to go to my index.html. So I've included this script file, which just has a function. Okay. I'm going to go down to the bottom here. Bottom of the body is where we would generally add. This is an inline script. Okay. And I'm going to call a function alert me. Okay. Alert me. Log this when the script loads. Okay. All right, let's go reload this page. Okay. Where am I going to see that? Where am I going to see that? Oh, look, down here. You go to the console tab right here. You'll see log this when the script loads. Okay. So what happened here was I included my JavaScript file, which included this nice little function. Okay. And then I called the function from my index.html page. Again, at the bottom is when we generally like to do it. Why? Because usually you want to wait for your whole page to be loaded before you actually act on it, because I might modify the page and things like that. So it's just general practice to put it at the bottom. Okay, and there's a lot more involved here, but alert me. I'm going to show you something here in the browser, in the debugger. So I go to my sources tab, and I'm going to look at the page, and I've got my JavaScript main.js. I'm going to put a little breakpoint in there by selecting that. Then I'm going to reload the page. Boom. Okay. I have a nice little debugger here, call stack. Okay. I can go down the call stack. It got called from index.html. Okay. Again, the page is going to be parsed top to bottom. Okay. So it loaded the JavaScript file, got to the bottom, found this script thing, and runs it. So when it finds a script tag, it runs it right then and there. Okay. And there's ways to defer that. Okay. We'll talk about that in more detail when we get into JavaScript. Okay. But here I've got go back to my main.js. I got a breakpoint here. I can actually look at my call stack. I can look at the scope. Hang on a second. Global scope. Where's it showing me my message? I could watch, I can say add watch, MSG, not available. Not available right now. What is that? That's actually a good question. Let's go. Oh, now it is. Okay. All right. And boom, a console logged. So this is actually, the console is a really good place to debug your JavaScript. So I'm going to have you do much more complex JavaScript. Okay. But I recommend, one, that you learn how to use the debugger, which is even better because you can just walk through your code. You can also throw in console log statements. Okay. And those can also help you debug. Those of you who have ever done a printf or a, what do they use in a write in a Python app? Okay, same sort of thing. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. All right, any questions on this? This is just basic debugging, script inclusion. Let's see. I'm going to show you one thing that you can do in JavaScript while we're in. So this, we'll start getting a little preview on JavaScript. Let's say I want to actually modify that H2 tag. We're going to modify that H2 tag, which is right now, what color is it? I think it's purple. Purple. So it's rendered, but when the page is loaded, so this is what, so the three things all tie together. HTML loads the basic layout. CSS, you can include CSS to style it in all sorts of different ways. Fantastic. Okay. JavaScript you can use to even modify the DOM or modify the page dynamically. So once the page is all loaded, I can now take this div and push it off to the left and animate it, as it comes in, right? I can do various things with JavaScript that you can't do with CSS. Now CSS can do animations too, by the way, just so you know. But I can do cool things with JavaScript. In this case, I'm just going to grab that H2. Okay. I'm going to say let my H2 equal window.document. Okay, so what I'm specifying here is element. Is it called redhead right now? Let's see. Okay. Back up here. Yeah, I'm calling it redhead. I'm going to change. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go down to my thing here. And I'm going to say, and I hope you guys are like following along, playing around. All right. So now I have a reference to my H2. Now I can say my H2 of style.color equal green. So what I've done is I've done a get element by ID. So pass in the ID. It's going to get me the element, and then I'm going to take that my H2 variable, and I'm going to set the style color green. All right, let's see whether this worked my first try. And stop to the breakpoint. Oh, look. It turned it green. Okay. That's kind of like people can get confused with HTML and JavaScript and CSS and kind of what's happening because you got lots of things in play. I got my HTML elements, inline styles. I got my CSS style sheets, which can be, stacked, 5 style sheets on top of each other, all right? And then I've got JavaScript, which can go ahead and just change anything it wants anyway, right? And so it gives you the ultimate, I guess, flexibility. Let's put it that way. All right. In the future, you're going to be creating DOM elements. Okay. In this case, I'm just accessing it and modifying it. Later, I'm going to have you create a table on the fly using JavaScript. Right? Things like that. All right. 2 minutes. Any questions on what we've covered today? Any questions in the window? Oh, no questions. Yeah, all down, pat. All right. Let's go. See if anything else I wanted to just briefly touch on. We didn't go through forms again. It's okay. You'll get plenty of forms. You do have a form, next class period we'll talk a little more. Developer guidelines. Let me just see if there's any ones I really want to point out here. I always spend the last minute on those. Use closing tags, okay. For tags that have a closing tag, always use the closing tag to mark the end of the document. Avoid self-closing tags, okay. Standard HTML does not require or promote using self-closing tags to avoid elements. Use image, not image with a slash. Let's see here. If you ever want to put a quote within a quote, you can do this. / quote, and you can escape it. That, and now when I run this file, it's got a bunch of breakpoints. Log, quote, this script, when script, quote, unquote, loads. Okay? Any other ones I really, make sure you use lowercase. I had a few of you turn in stuff with uppercase tags. Okay? Yeah, that's good for now. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming today. Stop recording.
Thank you, Professor.
Welcome. All right. Did anyone come from